Hi there, this is Dennis Velko with Out Bureau. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Out Bureau Voices, where we have engaging conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders from around the world. And today we are joined with Jason Kneip. He is a community leader who resides in a suburb outside of Chicago. And I think we're going to have an interesting dialogue. So be sure to stay tuned all the way through the end. All right. We often get great golden nuggets well into the episode. So reward yourself and stay tuned all the way to the end. Well, welcome, Jacob. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Devin, how are you this morning?
You know, outside of this being my allergy season, I live in Florida and we have oak trees, and the oak tree pollen has just been a nemesis. But luckily, I have been back here in my home state of Florida, where I grew up, for a couple years, and every year gets just a little bit better. So, well, let's start talking a little bit about you and your background. I was very intrigued when we had our initial conversation, and it sounds like you're doing some great things in your community. So let's start off with just a little bit of background information, kind of leading you up to what you're doing today.
Yeah, definitely. So growing up, I never thought that I was going to be, a community leader or like an activist, if you will. Grew up, pretty well off. I never went without. My parents were always open, affirming, loving. There were a couple of like hard times, but there was never any of that like pivotal like negativity in my life when I was growing up. Went to a nice-ish high school. Just outside of high school, I went to beauty school, which is where I kind of started, my life, if you will. And that's kind of where the story actually starts, because in beauty school, you're always asked by any guest speaker that comes in, or even by your teachers, why are you doing this? Why are you in beauty school? Why do you want to do hair? And, just like everybody else who was sitting next to me, I said, I want to make people feel beautiful. And I wholeheartedly believed that from day one, that, I wanted to make people feel beautiful, and I wanted to make them look beautiful, and, whatever that meant for them, that's what I wanted. So, got through beauty school, top of the class as much as you can in beauty school. And then started working, and my first job was actually, I was managing, a hair salon. And I was like, management just isn't my thing. Maybe I'll try, going into a higher end salon. So I did that, and I tried, working in a higher end salon where I was still doing cuts and colors and all of those things. And, something was still just missing. And I just thought it was, I wasn't making enough money. I wasn't happy with my management. I wasn't happy with X, Y, and Z. So then me and my ex actually moved from Arizona to Chicago a couple years after I had started doing hair, where I landed my dream job. And my dream job was with this man. His name is John Raymond, and he, was doing stuff on the runways. He was doing editorial work, and I was able to actually be in that. And, I was in theory working for my idol. And something still felt weird. And I don't know what you believe in, and I don't really know what I believe in really at this point, but I think the universe works in mysterious ways, because I got fired from my dream job. And the day that I got fired from this job, he said to me, I'm casting too big of a shadow, and I need you to figure out where you belong in this community. So literally that same day, I called up one of the potential interviews that I had set up months beforehand. I said, hey, can I come in for an interview today? And now we're talking from Chicago to where this interview is 45 minutes out of the way. I don't even live anywhere near here. I have no idea why I called them. So got fired at 9 o'clock in the morning, called up Dana, my friend, who is the manager at the salon. She's not my friend yet. And I said, hey, I remember that we talked. I want an interview today. So 9 o'clock, get fired. 11 o'clock, I get an interview. And then 12 o'clock, I get the job. And, so I get the job, and she's walking around this little town, super quaint, super cute. We're walking around, and she's like, yeah, so a couple things about Wheaton. Super conservative. We're recently not a dry town. secular dancing was illegal at Wheaton College, a couple years ago. Like all of the things that were like, why am I working here as, a very out and proud gay man? What am I thinking? And so, I work here for a couple of years in this town, and something feels right. But the thing that feels right isn't that I'm making people, look good with their hair. The thing that feels right is I'm actually having honest conversations with some of the students that are at Wheaton College about, what the LGBTQ plus community is and what it means for me and to be an out gay man, and, what my relationship with God may or may not be, and how, we all kind of fit under this umbrella of like, loving each other. So, jump a couple of years later, after doing that for a little bit, I moved salons. And first day at this new salon, I have this brand new client who's regular at the salon, sits in my chair. They're 17 years old. And, I'm cutting their hair, and they came up to me as non-binary, which is, totally normal for me. I'm like, okay, great. Like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do for you? And they started telling me about their extracurriculars. And as you probably know, in high school, you're very experimental. And I was like, my first thought was, please use protection, please use protection, please use protection. Like, I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to get hurt. I just want you to be safe. And their first thought was, please don't tell my mom, because I don't want to get kicked out of the house. And it was literally that moment, that night I went home and I said, I need to do something about this. I was able to have an organization growing up that, helped me find my group, my, set of people who let me have my chosen family. So I was like, I need to make this for this kid that sat in my chair today. So I did. And that's how Outspoken Leaders started. And we started, a couple months later doing, support and discussion groups for all LGBTQ plus youth and young adults.
Okay, well, very interesting. So you went from kind of a very open and cities to this very small town, notably, as you said, quite conservative, and sounds that it leans a bit right on all fronts, and saw the need. And so, I guess what I really like about that story is, we have to be the change that we want to see. And, sometimes in life, those opportunities come up, and you could have just said, wow, well, here's my number if you ever need anything, have a great life, right? But seeing the greater need, I think, is important, and then taking steps. And so let's talk a little bit about kind of those early stages in forming your organization for the community, because, that might give some inspiration. And maybe there's someone out there listening right now that says, gosh, there's nothing in my community. I live in, North Dakota somewhere, or Iowa, or wherever, or middle of Texas. And they might say, there's nothing in my community that supports me. And maybe you giving some of your tactical, strategic, or whatever kinds of steps that you took might give them inspiration to do the same.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember, 2 weeks after this, haircut happened, I sat down and I, gathered a few of my friends who I knew wouldn't just be a bunch of yes people. Like I knew I was, preparing to like be a martyr. Like people are going to like yell at me about like, this is not going to happen. So I prepared a little presentation of like what I grew up with, what I envisioned, what I thought, what I thought this one kid needed, so that if this one kid needs it, why aren't there others out there? So I sat down, had this meeting with a couple of my friends. I'm like, okay, so here's the plan. So we're October. Here's the plan. I want to reach out to all of the schools. I want to, reach out to the public library. I want to do all of these things that, I had growing up. And I think that our first meeting for, LGBTQ plus, youth and young adults needs to happen in January. And here's how. So what we did is, I pay tax money here, right? So, the government works for me. The public library works for me. park district works for me. So what I did is I'm like, hey, I'm a taxpayer. Why can't I, rent out a room? Why can't I do this? So ultra conservative, Wheaton, Illinois. I reach out. First place I thought was library, because I know that all libraries kind of have those conference rooms. Hey, I'm willing to pay. Can we schedule a weekly conference room, reservation for, youth and young adults? First, nope, sorry, we don't do that. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, you don't rent out your rooms, or you don't do it week, like totally over my head that like, oh no, we don't do that, ... because you're gay. Though it was never said, that was always the undertone, is what I had kind of told some of my other friends is if I had said, hey, we just want to rent out this room for like a book club, or we just want to rent out this room, just for like a hangout group, totally would have been approved. But whoever I ended up talking with was just straight up was, nope, sorry, we can't do that. So I was like, okay, well, library's out. No big deal, whatever. So next place I thought was the Park District. And the Park District here is a big building. It's kind of our community center because we don't have one here in Wheaton. So I said, hey, kind of the same thing. I want to rent out a room weekly. What's it going to cost me? How do I apply? What do I do? And very quickly they were like, yes, we want to do this. We want to help you. Unfortunately, we can't donate it because you're not a 501c3 yet. But here's what we can do to work together. So then, we worked together with the Park District, and, first step was finding a place, and that was done within 2 days of, having this idea. So got the location.
Wonderful. And so, so then you were able to book it out well in advance, so you could, publicize that and make people know it's going to be at this location, every Friday or whatever time, every week, every other week, or whatever. And so that's very interesting. So with the library, did you, so you didn't say it, but it sounds like you initially told them it was for LGBT youth.
Yeah, so the first email that I sent out to both the library and the Park District was, hello, my name's Jacob. This is the thing that I'm starting. And I gave them a whole backstory of when I grew up. I had, it's called 1 in 10 in Phoenix, Arizona. They, serve and support youth and young adults, who are LGBTQ plus. And this is a thing that I want to start. And here's all. And I gave them the programming that I was going to be basing my first couple of meetings off of. Oh. I said, this is what we want to teach to the youth and young adults here in Wheaton. Can we use your space?
Oh, okay. So you gave them a lot of, kind of your vision for it, and your programming that you were looking at doing. And so that's what gave that library the heads up. I would have been sending a letter to the mayor, because it's like, well, no, that's a public space, and they actually cannot deny me.
Well, so at the time, it didn't cross my mind that was the situation, because, Chicago, I just assumed Chicago, all of Illinois was going to be, open and affirming and loving. That for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, this is not Arizona anymore. I can just, be super gay and not worry about it. So that's why, right at first, it didn't even cross my mind that was the issue. So that's why I just moved on and went to the Park District.
Okay. Well, great. So, so what kind of a, space were you able to work out with the Park District to have?
Yeah, definitely. So they had a bunch of rooms in the Park District because, like I said, it's the community center. So they often rent out for classes and things. So I had, a huge room. It looked like a classroom. I had 35 chairs for people to come sit at. And literally I had it every Tuesday from, 5 to 7 for anybody who was LGBTQ plus who wanted to, either hang out or wanted to actually participate in discussion. Okay.
Great. Yeah. So, okay. Got it. So it's like a rec center in a way, as close as that community had.
Right.
Well, wonderful. So, so at this point, or I guess we could talk, some ideas are going through my head, but maybe I'll wait for those for later. So let's talk about, since then, kind of how the growth and the progression of your organization, and we'll kind of get to where it is today.
Yeah. So at first, I'll be completely honest, our first meeting was Not what I expected at all. So it was me, one of the like co-founders, and some mom. A mom came in and she's like, I saw this on Facebook and I wanted to come and join. And I was like, okay, great. Well, you're our only person, but just so you know, like in the future, this isn't really for you. But that like sparked a thing in my head of a program that we're launching later this year about, how do we connect parents on a different level? But, we had an open, honest conversation with this random mom that just came in. So it was me, Gretchen, and this mom who just sat down and talked about, what our plans were. The first session was supposed to be about creating, the boundaries and the guidelines for the ongoing discussions. But obviously that didn't happen because there was no youth there. But literally the first meeting was such a flop, and I don't know why I kept going, but like I was like, no, something's missing. I just have to keep trying a little bit harder.
Yeah, well, I have to give kudos to that mom, right? Because what a great person to, obviously she thought, or, at the time, that one of her children likely might be LGBTQ and wanted to come be a supportive person and learn. So that's awesome. That's a nice thing. I wouldn't call that a flop. Even in that community, that's the beginnings. And to have that parental support is awesome. So when that's actually where I was going to go. So I'm glad you kind of started with that. Is I was going to say, oh my gosh, I'm sure you've heard of PFLAG.
Yes. So actually, I'm pretty sure she's on the DuPage PFLAG board now. Like I'm 99% sure because I directed her to PFLAG. I'm like, this is more of what you're looking for. I think she's an active supporter of PFLAG now.
Awesome. Because that would be a great partnership between yourselves and PFLAG to, if she's on that, to, work together to kind of get that from both angles. So wonderful to hear. And so now you have grown into doing regular meetings. I saw on your website, beers with queers or something like that. That's cute. And so let's kind of move on with, the progression of how you kind of built this. I think that'd be interesting. How did you get the word out, and kind of how did it morph?
So Facebook has been our best friend, which is weird to say because other than, self-promotion, I hate Facebook because I just don't want to see my racist grandma's comments on all of my posts. But that's a story for a different day. But Facebook was our best friend because I would post in all of these, Facebook groups. So I was able to find, different Facebook groups that were basically what I was trying to form, but virtually. So, we've got, Neighbor Pride Facebook group, which is, a bunch of people in Naperville who are looking to kind of chat with each other and, maybe schedule a couple of things to hang out with or whatever. And, literally 20 or 30 of these Facebook groups within, a 30-mile radius of where I am. So I keep posting on there, hey, we've got this weekly support group. And, we got a few people. But then, we actually grew way faster when COVID hit, which is so weird to say. But we were able to switch, from, being limited to only renting 1 day a week to now, hey, we're going to offer right at first with COVID, we offered something every single day. So we had, we still had our regular LGBT youth and young adult group. Then we had a high school specific one. Then we had a transgender specific one, which we're still running. And then we had a couple of other, like, just throughout the week of just like, come hang out with us, do a book club, come hang out with us and let's watch a movie. So we were really able to like grow and connect virtually that way, which was amazing.
And due to COVID, were you having to take those virtually, or were you guys able to still, was the space large enough to still meet kind of the COVID standards?
So we had to do everything virtually at that point. So that's actually where Beers with Queers was born, is, we can't meet at the public library and like meet in a closed space. But our local brewery is open and affirming and has been since day one. Hey, let's, one, go support a business that supports us. Two, let's all hang out outside because they've got, ample outdoor dining. And three, let's have a good beer or two. So,
Okay.
So that was one of the big things that we were able to do is instead of just being about, education, we were able to be more of like this community of people getting together.
Okay, awesome. Now, I don't know that area. So, if do you kind of have a sense of over the areas that you're striving to serve now? You know, like the general population size.
So I know that Wheaton, which is our like home base, is about 50,000 people. And then Glen Ellen, which is like our next door neighbor, which is our other kind of like drawing base, I think is slightly smaller at like 30 to 40,000 people. So we're talking about like 100,000 people, you know, kind of in the area that we're serving. So not huge, but also not teeny tiny.
Yes, gotcha. And don't know if you've seen this, but I'll be writing an article about it and using some of the stats on my site. Is the Gallup poll company about a week ago came out with a new study, and they found that more people, almost 2% more people over 4 years ago, I think it was, compared to now, self-identify as part of the LGBTQ community. And then they broke it down based on age group. And so the older generation is significantly less that self-identify, but then the youth, those between, 16 to say 28, 15.5% self-identify as LGBTQ. So it's and that's because, of course, people in the younger generation are much more comfortable in exploring themselves and owning it at a much younger age because of societal shifts and efforts such as yours in your community. There's also another stat that was done by YouGov. It's a British similar organization like a Gallup. They do study after study after study, and not just on the UK but around the world. And a year and a half, almost two ago, they did a study which I actually wrote about, is on the website on outbureau.com, where they found that for those in the United States under the age of 30, 29% would be kind of classified, that the term was coined heteroflexible. And that means, especially in a college town, you might have college buds going out on a Friday night, and you know the song, Up All Night to Get Lucky, Up All Night to Get Lucky. Well, they don't. And so they end up back wherever, and they're like, things happen, but they don't, and they're okay with it. They're okay with the same gender experience now and then, but they don't identify as bisexual. They don't even identify as queer. They are steadfastly heterosexual, but stuff happens. And so, I focusing on on that demographic and giving them that support, because there's, again, 15.5% according to Gallup. Folks, Google it. I will be writing an article here shortly. Again, that literally just came out last week. So new data. And so when you look at your whole area of, let's just call it 100,000 for good math, for easy math in my head. And if you were able to get stats on your, you should be able to get this likely, from your schools. If you were to, call the Department of Education in your areas to just say, all I want is how many kids are in high school. I'm not looking for their identification information. I just want a number, right? And then how many are in college? And maybe you might be able to get maybe from your county, their demographics on how many, people are within the county or your area that are within those certain age brackets. If you were then to write grants or seek funding from your local government or from local businesses, to be able to say that there are, out of that 100,000, there are 20,000 people in this area that are of this age bracket. And according to Gallup, 15.5% of those self-identify. This number, this is how many people experience this. Having that kind of stats will further solidify and give credence and credibility to, I hope I use the word credence right there. Only one cup of coffee right now so far, so my brain. But anywho, just trying to give you a little bit of info on if you've not done any of that. And I guess that kind of leads into, are you self-funding this? How are you kind of supporting this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at first we were self-funding. Right now we're doing a big fundraising push because we are planning the first ever Pride event here. But talking about, the business donations and the business involvement, we actually started during COVID, which is kind of how we've been able to grow so quickly and, kind of fund more programs. We started what is called Wheaton Proud and Glen Ellyn Proud. So it's essentially an LGBT chamber of commerce without, these people actually being LGBT identifying. Let me see if I can find it. But basically all we did is we reached out to all of the businesses here and we were like, So we reached out to all of the businesses here and we were like, hey, so here's the deal. We're an LGBT nonprofit. And at first it was one of our kids is struggling to find a therapist who's open and affirming and wanting to say that they're, LGBT affirming. So we reached out to all of the businesses and we were like, how do we change this? So we literally created, Wheaton Proud and Glen Ellyn Proud. It's just a sticker that you put in your window if you openly and affirmingly, support the LGBT community. Literally was expecting 10 people to sign up. And that would have been a win for us because, in Wheaton, 10 businesses saying, yes, we love the gays. Great. We want that. We have 55 people in both Wheaton and Glen Ellyn. So 55 businesses have this sticker in their window saying, hey, if you identify as, LGBTQ plus, come on in. You're welcome. This is going to be a safe space for you.
Awesome. Nice to have so many on your first round.
Yeah. So it's all
creating that visibility. So as
yes.
everyone walks by and goes in and other businesses see it, maybe they'll see a business uptake in their business and help other people kind of move along. So really great.
Yeah. But these two programs being so successful right out of the gate have been so necessary for our when we write grants, we get to say, hey, there's 55 businesses that, if the grant requires that, we do more business engagement, great. We've got 55 businesses that we can roll this out to. Or as we're looking for bigger corporate sponsors that are more consultants and stuff, we're able to get more consultants to, sponsor Pride and stuff because we're like, hey, if you sponsor us, you now have this access to these businesses that, are already trying to be more inclusive to all people. So really Wheaton Proud and Glen Ellyn Proud have, kind of started rolling all of the funds coming, either from the government grants that we've gotten or, bigger donations from the community, seeing that, we actually mean business. We're not just going to go away, in the next 2 or 3 years.
Got you. And kind of getting into that and support, I noticed on your website that, if I'm not mistaken, you're connected with CenterLink. So for those out there who might not have ever heard of CenterLink, for organizations, so if you're wanting to be a courageous and community leader, just like Jacob in your area, and help start groups like what he's doing, CenterLink, and it's centerlink.org, correct? I'll have a link to it down below, and we'll have links to, of course, Jacob's website where there is a link to CenterLink. But if you just even Google CenterLink, it is kind of an umbrella organization for LGBTQ organizations here in the United States. I'm not aware of others. If you're aware of other similar organizations around the world, please put those in the comments below. I'd love to create a resource page for those. But they help provide support, guidance, education, and so forth. And so if you could please, just maybe for a few moments, share your experiences with CenterLink and what they have helped you to do so far, and maybe maybe things that are planned or you would like to do that they have the ability to help you achieve?
Yeah, great question. I'm so glad that you brought them up because that was on my list of things to talk about.
Wonderful.
But CenterLink is such a great resource. If anybody out there is looking to start, kind of their own LGBT nonprofit, great resource. But also, if anybody out there is, maybe you've got a kid, maybe you know somebody in your life that needs the support, but you don't know, if there is that support in your community, they have a feature where you can look up, hey, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. Is there anything for me out here? And they have a map of like the closest LGBT center for you. An LGBT center could be, a youth and young adult center. It could be a senior care center, or it could be like an HIV and AIDS center. So if you have any of those kinds of concerns, needs, or if anybody that you love has any of those concerns or needs, go check out CenterLink like right now. But to answer your question, CenterLink has been so amazing for me as an executive director because they have ED boot camp, which is executive director boot camp, which goes through like what it means to be an executive director. Julia is helping me kind of step out of the role of both founder, executive director, and board chair, and helping me find, do I want to be the executive director and like be the day-to-day operations, or am I really looking to be like the board chair and like be the big boss, but maybe not take home a paycheck? So they've got all of these resources for, development of yourself and your team. They've got all of these resources such as funding, such as, social media posts for, the actual center or anything that you may be starting. And then they've got resources for all, youth and young adults as well. They actually have Q Chat Space, which is a virtual chat space for all youth and young adults, kind of led by a few of the center leaders from across the country. So CenterLink has been a great, great, great resource. And, it's been kind of, I don't know how I found it. I think I had a conversation with one of the other centers here in Chicago, and they're like, you need to check out CenterLink. And it's been the best decision that I've made, not just as a nonprofit executive director, but also as like a person, because I get to meet other people who are like-minded as well.
Yes. Well, yeah. So they help provide education to the organization on how to structure the organization, how to operate the organization, and coaching and guidance along the way so that you will be as successful as possible. Because, like I happen to know we'll say a friend of mine, a past neighbor of mine, lost her son to testicular cancer, which is a huge issue for young men, for men from, like age 18 to 40. It's one of the number one killers of males. And she started this whole nonprofit, and I gotta tell you, we have gotten into some things. I love her to death, but she has no clue. No clue. I'm trying to give her advice on some basic nonprofit fundamentals, and she just thinks I'm trying to take over. It's like, no, I have enough going on in my life. I'm just trying to educate you. So you do this, And so she doesn't have a support organization like CenterLink to provide this kind of stuff. So I cannot say I can just re-echo your sentiments about CenterLink. It is such a valuable tool for the community, because if you are thinking at all about starting an organization in your area, get connected with CenterLink right now. Pause this video and contact them, then come back. Okay, because they're that helpful. So really cool. So have they perhaps given you maybe some ideas on outside of kind of structure, but maybe I kind of heard maybe some programming support? And I love that they already have social media posts ready that you can just slightly modify and go with. That's awesome.
Yeah. So our first rendition of like our support and discussion groups were, I don't want to say sloppy, but they were sloppy. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, okay, first day we're going to create rules. Second week we're going to do, maybe we're going to have a fun activity. Third week we're going to do like art therapy. Like I was just kind of all over the place. So I think the first like couple of emails with CenterLink was, hey, I need help with my, I need help with my curriculum. And literally I reached out, and within 24 hours, I was able to talk with somebody, and they gave me kind of 4 or 5 other centers curriculums. And they're like, don't use this exactly, but modify it a little bit. So now we have our own curriculum. So it's really more of a connection of other like-minded centers as more than it is like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but basically you get out of it what you put into it. So if you reach out and you're like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, I want to create a new curriculum. Great. Well, so here's some curriculums that we've got shared from 4 other, nonprofits that, are either trans specific or non-binary specific, all of these different resources. And they're like, here, create your own. They've also been able to provide me with webinars to become a better executive director. So I've connected with other, EDs. So now outside of just being LGBTQ plus nonprofits, I'm able to connect with other people doing similar things kind of in this executive position role. So I can figure out, hey, how are you writing your grants? How are you, reaching out to your corporate sponsors, which has been so much more than helpful that I can't even believe it. And then, like I said, CenterLink actually has a section, if you're a member, that says, hey, here's all of the current funding that's available for all LGBT nonprofits, all youth nonprofits, and then all health-related nonprofits. So literally, if anything, if you're starting a nonprofit that's LGBT specific, sign up for CenterLink. And then before you even go to grants.gov, which if you've been to grants.gov, you know how awful it is.
Yes,
Before you go
it is awful.
it's the worst.
Yeah, so they have created this consolidated resource list of grants, and so that it's easy for you to just find. And I love that you have those connection opportunities with other organizational leaders to get advice on how they achieved what they achieved. And it sounds like people in different areas are very open to sharing that information and knowledge with you.
Well, so one of my new friends that I've made from just the weekly meetings that we have as executive directors is all the way in California. Like, I'm literally friends with an executive director in California. That's so cool. Like, I don't know. I just think it's great to know that, one, stuff is being done all across the country, and two, I can connect and learn, hey, this works in California, will it work in Chicago? Hey, this works in, Florida, will this work in Chicago, kind of thing. So it's great to kind of grow and learn as the United States and as like CenterLink, as opposed to me just trying to grow all on my own. It's been so incredibly helpful.
Awesome. So good to hear. So good to hear. I appreciate you sharing all of that information. So what's been going on lately? This has been, fairly new, bit of a ride. And what's been happening here in 2021, and what are you looking to do?
So last year during June, we were able to get with Wheaton Proud and Glen Ellen Proud, we were able to get a lot of the businesses painted with rainbow flags with the help of the Downtown Wheaton Association, which is basically just an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce here. And we did apply for a Pride Parade permit this year. And unfortunately, with COVID and the restrictions, it's not looking probable. It's still pending. But at this point, we're so close to it that I don't want to plan anything and throw together a haphazard Pride. So what we're doing is we are doing Wheaton and Glen Ellen Pride 2021. Our theme is #WelcomeHome. It's an all-encompassing theme that means no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what you believe in, you're welcome here in Wheaton and Glen Ellen. So gay, straight, bi, transgender, queer, questioning anything, any ethnicity, any religion, anything, you're welcome here in, Wheaton and Glen Ellen, regardless of who you are. And that's really kind of the theme of all of Outspoken Leaders. So what we're doing for Pride is we're creating a hybrid event. So we're launching an app. Actually, we will be premiering the app March 12th, and it launches and is live March 12th. And basically, it's your one-stop shop for all things Pride. So you'll be able to chat with other members of your community here in Wheaton and Glen Ellen if you're looking to, kind of talk about what's going on in Pride. You'll be able to see what businesses are signed up for Wheaton Proud. You'll be able to live stream our drive-by Pride event. You'll be able to participate in our virtual 5K. So much stuff is going on, and we're trying to make June as proud as possible, if that makes sense.
Well, absolutely, and sounds great. And yes, we unfortunately have this thing called COVID, and have to do what we can do and make the best of it. But it is about adapting and learning, and one of the great things that has come out of it, and for me, is I prior to COVID, I was first talking with people. Oh, write an article, for outbureau.com, and well, that's very difficult to do. And then with COVID, I started just having more people were requesting Zoom chats or whatever, and that's what led me to do these interviews. And now I have about 80 episodes accomplished, which is great. And I honestly can say that probably within the last 8 months, I've had only about 5 traditional phone calls. Everything I do now is face to face. And I love, even though that we are in this distancing world, what I do is everywhere anyways. So it's not just for me. It's not just about my location where I happen to live. It's for globally. And so, and what I love about it, like, when I'm connecting up with someone, I'm like, we can have, let's meet and have a coffee or a cocktail together. And, like you and I were, I just like the additional layer of the seeing a person on the screen, and it's just another layer of communication that you just don't get through a traditional just phone call, hearing their voice. So, it's not as, for Pride festivals and so forth, it's not in person, and that is the great experience, walking around, looking at all the hotties in their skimpy little outfits and so forth, but, we got to make the best of what we can with what we have. So good for you guys for doing that.
Well, with what we've got going on, like I said, we're trying to keep it hybrid. So we're still doing a drive-by Pride event. We are planning something the day after the Pride Drive event that we're not announcing just yet because it's a question mark on if it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But we're still doing stuff in person, but we also want to acknowledge that, some people are way more vulnerable than others for, COVID. Some people aren't vaccinated. The LGBT community and, people of color are way more vulnerable to COVID than, straight, cis, white people. So we want to acknowledge that, and, still we'll put stuff on for people who feel comfortable to come out and, do the drive-by Pride event, come do a drag brunch with us. But if you don't feel comfortable, great. You've got this thing at home, pull it up, type in, our Welcome Home app, and you are going to feel like you're just there. So we're live streaming everything we're doing so that you can not only watch it on your phone, but also chat with us in person live. So I love that there's this new technology that allows us to do this. And I hope that we're able to do this even if we can get a Pride Parade permit next year as well.
Yes, well, that's been on my mind is, I personally believe that having that mixed experience like you're already planning, moving forward will be empowering for people. People might have medical issues. They might have disability issues, and they can't get out in crowds like that and walk around for hours. But so in the past, they've lacked the ability to participate. Or maybe they have kids at home and, they just don't want to take their child out for a long day. Or for, whatever reasons, or, they're just whatever reasons, to still be able to participate. I think this is has been a great learning opportunity on forcing organizations to create the virtual experience. And now I can sincerely hope that moving forward, all organizations will do what you're doing, and in the future, when we can get together in person, still continue this so that we have that hybrid experience. So kudos to you. Awesome. Well, I know we are just about out of time here. Is there any last thoughts or something that you wanted to cover that we haven't yet?
Well, I don't have any last thoughts, but I just want to throw this out there. If anybody out there who's watching or listening to this needs any kind of support or anything like that, please feel free to reach out, to either me or CenterLink or QChat Space or the Trevor Project. There's so many great resources out there for anybody who may or may not be struggling. It's not about, me getting my name out there. All of this is all about making sure that the LGBT community worldwide feels welcome, accepted, and feels like they're at home wherever they live. So yeah, if you've got any, if you need to talk to anybody, I'm always available. I assume Dennis is always available. It was really easy to get in touch with him. But yeah, just reach out if you ever need any help or any kind of anything like that.
Well, great. And of course, folks, come on board to outbureau.com wherever you are. It's free to join. So, and there's also, once you've completed at least 30% of your profile, then that unlocks all the features. And that's really just to keep spammers out, and no one likes a ghost town. You are able to also be anonymous on the site. So if you are not comfortable in putting your first name and last name, it's geared professional, and meaning that no things that would be inappropriate in an office should not be posted on Outbureau. So no, I see things on Facebook that would not be allowed on Outbureau. Okay, so no hot go-go boys and jockstrap images and so forth like that. We want to be also gender friendly. So, women don't want to see that, and men don't want to see, this. So just keep it so that your grandmother can see it. Okay, if you do that and office friendly, we're good. But there's groups. So once you've completed at least 30% of your profile, there's groups. Welcome you guys to create a group for your organization and your location on the site. If you're in, like you mentioned, Tucson, Arizona, start a Tucson, Arizona group right on outbureau.com. So you can connect with other people, you can connect with businesses, indicate that you're a business owner and so forth, and also indicate whether you would like to be a mentor or open to, or if you would like a mentor or if you'd like to be a mentor, so that you guys can search each other. Because one of the big things when you're looking to grow in your career and get a job is, I recently did an interview with a former Facebook HR director, and he indicated that 80% of jobs are filled through networking. So, and oh, by the way, we'll also be adding here, hopefully soon, within a month or possibly two, we'll see, depends on business and income. We'll be adding a full job board, and only bringing in job postings from companies who are on outbureau.com. And on outbureau.com, you're able to rate your employer as well. From your LGBTQ perspective, have you experienced discrimination, harassment, etc.? You can rate them for that. And if you love your employer, come please give them a great rating. Let other LGBTQ people know who are looking for a job that is a great place to work. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Jacob. It was a wonderful pleasure getting to know a lot more about what you are doing. I'm absolutely inspired by what you're doing there and appreciate that. So thank you. And thank you again for your time.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing with outbureau.com. I really mean that. It's needed. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, so and thank you, everybody. While we're on the thanks and so forth, be sure to subscribe or follow Outbureau Voices on whatever video or podcasting app you are viewing or listening to this to make sure that you stay informed with our future episodes. Much appreciated, guys. Bye-bye.